Today we are going to practice drawing an eye and also painting an eye using a technique that helps us focus on line and shape. Much of learning how to draw is practicing seeing lines and shapes, not so much the entire picture, but the lines that make up the picture or the shape that makes up the entire image. We will practice this technique using a printed image of an eye, a graphite stick, which is essentially the inside of a pencil, and we're creating a transfer. A transfer is when you take an image and you transfer it onto another piece of paper. We will do this by flipping the paper over and rubbing the graphite stick on the back of the paper. Make sure all the white spaces are filled in. Once you've covered in the back of that paper using the graphite stick, you're ready to tape it onto a new clean sheet of paper. This is where the transfer begins. Tape the top and the two sides down. This is to avoid your paper from shifting or moving directions. Make sure the tape is on nice and tight. Now, using a pencil, you are going to trace over every line that you see. An image is basically just made up of various lines. If you see a darker line, feel free to color that line in and make it thicker. Thinner lines are thin, and thicker lines will require you to apply a little more pressure on your pencil. Make sure you don't leave any lines out. This will help transfer the image you see onto the paper. Make sure you pay attention to the direction that the eyelashes are going. Trace every line that you see. The darker lines will require you to press down on your pencil a little harder. And the lighter portion of the eye, you will press down your pencil with less pressure. Make sure you're filling in the details of the inner eye and apply pressure to the center of the eye. The blackest part of the eye is the center, and you will need to apply a lot of pressure to that. Remove the picture once you're done and compare it. The image will not be perfect. It's a rough idea of what the eye looks like. That's when you go back with your pencil and define those lines. I'm making the darker lines darker by going over them again. I'm adding some shading toward the inner top part of the eye with a light pencil rubbing back and forth. The center of the eye, I'm going over again with my pencil and making it dark. The lines that I see on the original photo, I'm making those lines darker if they're darker in the original photo. If they're lighter, I make them lighter on my paper. You can use your eraser to take out a color that you might put down and it could be a mistake. Feel free to go back and forth, erase things, change things. This is a guide to draw the eye. Once you have it looking the way that you want, stop. Now we'll add color. In class, we discussed how to use watercolor. The lighter the color, the more water you want. The darker the color, you add less water. For this painting, we will be using various colors. I'm choosing to paint my eye in blue. Perhaps you'd rather paint your eye in a light brown, maybe a green. Blue is a very nice color for this picture because it pops and stands out. For the blue, you do not want to use your darkest dark. A blue eye has various values, various shades of blue. So I will have some darker parts of blue to the eye and lighter parts of blue to the eye. If you make a mistake, feel free to use a tissue and blot some of that color out. Leave the white portion, the circle at the top, white, because that looks like a reflection. The center of the eye, you can fill in with black watercolor. Using black, there is value. The darker parts, you use less water. If you want the value to be lighter, you'll add a lot of water. In fact, on this painting, I feel like my eyelashes are a bit too dark, so I would go back in with more water and lighten those up just a little bit. Look at the original photo to get a good idea and reference of the colors, the darks and the lights on your page. I don't want to fill that white part in with all black, only parts of it that look a little light black in the photo. I notice in the photo the edges where corners meet are typically darker, like the crease of the eye. Typically, you never really want to use black paint, but for this example, I'm showing you so you can get an idea. If you were really painting the eye, you would want to use a skin tone because the eye is part of skin. So I would be using a skin tone color. But for today, as we're practicing, black is an okay color to use. Notice I'm using various values, darks and lights. If you feel like you make a mistake, blot it up with a tissue quickly so it doesn't stain or set in too dark. If you want to draw in a skin tone after you've added in the color for the middle of the eye and some of your darker black tints, skin tone would be a mixture of these two colors, a yellow and red, or brown with a little bit of purple. If your skin is brown or light brown, use the brown mixed with a lot of water to create light tones. Darker brown is less water. I'm going to use a skin tone that's more of a peachy, so a red mixed with yellow and a little bit of orange. I do this in my mixing palette before I put it on the paper until I get the tone that I think would look good to go with my eye. I'm just going to practice this for now. Put it on the paper, and typically, if you were drawing this realistically, you would want to use this for the creases as well. But for practice, we'll just put this in toward the edges and around the eye. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to draw and paint an eye.